All right, hey everybody, welcome back. Who knew that we'd be in week 5, day 1 of online learning, huh? Not me, Miss Martell.
No, I miss you guys.
Yeah, we really miss you guys. It's been a while, and we're hoping that this is over soon. So anyway, guys, yeah, keep them coming, and let's go ahead and jump to our joke of the day.
All right. What did the baseball shout when Superman hit it?
I don't know. What did the baseball shout when Superman hit it?
Ouch.
That's cool. Okay. I didn't screen these jokes, guys.
I'm sorry.
I shouldn't say. I didn't mean to demean your joke. That was super cute, but I'm actually, yeah, I didn't know it was coming. It's not a fake laugh.
The lamer, the funnier.
That's true. Yeah, it's a dad joke, and I'm a dad. So anyway, are you ready, Miss Martell?
I am.
All right, tell us what to do.
All right, stand up straight, right hand over your heart, and get ready for the pledge, please. If you have a hat, please take it off.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, well, Miss Martell, thank you so much for doing this. It's so nice to see you. It's been a while because we've been not at the school for quite a while now. But yeah, it's good to catch up with you and see you in person here for a little bit. And kids, I hope that you are having a good time at home, taking it a little easy, but also not ignoring your work.
Yeah, keep studying and stay safe.
Yeah. Well, let's have a great weekend. Let's get to it, guys. So, week 5, day 1. Let's go. Goodbye.
Bye.
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to week 5, day number 1. It's a wonderful morning, so let's go ahead and get started with our work for the day, and we're starting with the agenda. Okay, so in life skills, we're not doing anything new. In fact, I'm not even going to be doing a life skills class today. You have your homework. You have to define the following words: equity, mortgage, credit score. Oh, that says downy payment. It should say down payment. Interest rate and principal. Okay, so in the notes for the day, you have the homework for life skills, and it's just to define those 6 words and send them in. Okay. Next up, in current events, we're renaming it to be current events in economics. Call it what it is, right? We're going to be talking today about producers or suppliers and consumers. So what is a producer, supplier? What is a consumer? That kind of thing. In history, we're talking about the Gilded Age and Laissez-Faire Economics. In Lit, we're just going on. You should have read Chapter 6 already, so homework tonight is to read Chapter 7. We're going to talk a little bit about Chapter 7 and go over a little bit of it together because we've been missing some homework from you guys. So we're going to be taking a look at that as a group. Then in science, we're talking about floating and sinking. We're going to be talking about floating and sinking and buoyancy quite a bit this week, and so we're starting on that today. Then in math for group 1, we already talked a little bit about this. We talked about the volume of cylinders. We're going to do a review from last week on that and have you watch 2 Khan Academy videos about that. And then tomorrow, after we reviewed volume of cylinders, we're going to move on to the volume of cones, spheres, and pyramids because they're all a little bit different and you have to know the differences. Okay. Last but not least, math group 2. We are talking about linear programming today, and so it's actually the practical application of everything that you're learning with graphing systems and graphing systems of both equations and systems of inequalities. All right, so that is the agenda for today. Again, there is no life skills class for today because in life skills, all you have to do is do that review homework. So let's jump directly into current events economics. Okay. All right, so again, we're in current events and economics for week 5, day number 1. And so good news is today we are talking about a very important concept that is very easy to understand. And so today we're going over 2 new vocabulary words that we will be using for the next several lessons. Okay, so our first vocabulary term is producers or suppliers. Okay. Now, producers or suppliers are people or companies in an economy that create goods or services. That's it. Okay. So producers or suppliers are people or companies in an economy that create goods or services. For instance, okay, a froyo shop produces frozen yogurt. They are a supplier of frozen yogurt. Easy. Okay. An accountant produces accounting services. They're a supplier of accounting services. So producers and suppliers are the same thing. Producers can make something like in a factory that is an actual good that you can buy, or it can be somebody in an office that creates a service that you use. Okay, so again, producers or suppliers are simply people or companies that make these different goods or services. Okay, now consumers are the opposite. Okay, so consumers are people or companies in an economy. Oops. That use up the goods and services producers / suppliers create. Okay? So a consumer, again, or consumers are people or companies in an economy that use up the goods and services producers and suppliers create. So one creates the goods and services, the other consumes or uses up those goods or services. Okay? Again, it's a very easy concept. One group makes them, the other group uses them, but you need to know these terms. Again, a consumer uses them up. A producer or supplier creates them. Believe it or not, that's it for current events economics today. Just got to know those two terms. Easy, huh? All right, let's go ahead and talk about history. All right, so in today's history class, we are talking about laissez-faire economics. Now, if that sounds familiar, and it should, that's because we've already talked about that this year in class. Laissez-faire economics is a French idea, and laissez-faire in French means to let alone, just leave it alone. And laissez-faire economic policy is this idea that government should not step in to do anything to the markets because markets are better when they run on their own. That's the idea. And so back in the day, these laissez-faire economic ideas, the people who held them were considered liberals. Now today, in 2020, or if you're watching this later, 2022 or whatever, all right? Today, people who feel that laissez-faire economic policy is the way to go are generally conservative people. And so the different parties have kind of flipped on the issue. But the idea is the same. People who believe in laissez-faire economics believe that you should not step in when the market is asking you to, or when people think that you should. Okay? This can be both good and bad. So the good part of this is that sometimes the markets are more efficient on their own. Okay? The market can figure it out, and you don't need to do anything. Okay? And the government should just leave it alone. Other times, however, the government needs to step in and set up laws and rules so that the markets are not abused. Okay? For instance, okay, somebody who believes in laissez-faire economics to an extreme extent would say that the government should not be involved in the production of cars. Now, the government is very much involved in the production of cars. The government creates rules for the safety of cars. It creates rules for the safety of using cars. You have to get a driver's license, okay? They make sure that all car companies put seat belts in the cars and airbags in the cars to keep the occupants safe, okay? And so somebody who believes in pure laissez-faire economics would see the way that the government regulates cars and the driving of cars and would disagree with the way that that is run, okay? They would say that, well, the government really should just leave it alone because these car companies and the market will figure it out on its own. People will buy dangerous cars and then die, and then the people who don't die we'll see that the people who died were driving car X, Y, and Z, and they'll avoid car X, Y, and Z, and then car companies X, Y, and Z will go out of business, and car companies A, B, and C, who had the best safety, will stay in business, and the market corrects itself. Okay, so that's the idea of laissez-faire economics. So as you all know, markets today in America, have some laissez-faire aspects where the government leaves them alone, and they have other aspects where the government intervenes and regulates. And so the best way to do it is probably somewhere in the middle. It's not one extreme where the government controls everything or another extreme where the government controls nothing, but it's somewhere in the middle. And so it is important, though, because during this period of time in the Gilded Age, laissez-faire economics became extremely popular. Okay? And it became popular to the extent where the government was letting companies kind of do whatever they wanted. And we've talked about the terrible conditions in factories in the past and whatnot, and it kind of came to a head in the Golden Age, where these factory owners and these other people who ran these businesses were allowed to do whatever they wanted to do because of laissez-faire economics. And so while we can point at that and say, well, that was bad, okay, the government shouldn't have let these companies do whatever they wanted to do, it also created a lot of wealth in America. Because these companies were being so productive, America became one of the great powerhouses. We became one of the great manufacturing powers, and just one of the great powers in general in the world. American technology and American business became some of the highest rated technology and business in the globe during this time, in some part because of these laissez-faire ideas. And so again, we have the good and we have the bad. The people were treated poorly, but America and its citizens became very wealthy on average during this time. So anyway, go ahead and read the Khan Academy article about laissez-faire economics in the Gilded Age, and that's it for your homework tonight. Okay, please do that, though, because we can see that you've read. All right, let's go ahead and move on to literature. And begin week number 5, day number 1 for literature. So last week, your homework on week 4, day 5 was to read chapter 6. And chapter 6 was a lot of fun because Tom Sawyer meets up with his inevitable best friend, Huckleberry Finn. And Huckleberry Finn is the son of, I think he was the drunkard of the town. And so people don't like him. At least the adults don't like him, but all the kids secretly really admire him. And so they talk and they swap stories, and I think they make plans to go to the graveyard the next night. And then when they get to school late, Tom Sawyer notices that the only seat left on the girls' side of the room is next to Becky, who he really likes. And so he wants to meet her, he wants to talk to her, and so when the teacher asks why he was late, he makes a really big show of the fact that he was out with Huck. And so, sure enough, the teacher punishes him by making him sit on the girls' side, right where he wanted to sit. And he uses his little chalkboard to kind of make an introduction with Becky and gets to be introduced to her. And as soon as the teacher kind of catches on, the teacher promptly moves them. And so that's kind of a fun chapter. He's very sly. And so today we're going to read chapter 7 together because I want to make sure that you all understand what to do. We're not getting the work from a lot of you in literature, even though it's like super easy. And it's, again, super easy. It just takes a little bit of time. So I want to make sure that you understand. So let's read it together. Less reading for you. You just have to do a little bit of writing. Okay? All right. So chapter 7. A treaty entered into, early lessons, a mistake made. The harder Tom tried to fasten his mind on his book, the more his ideas wandered. So at last, with a sigh and a yawn, he gave it up. It seemed to him that the noon recess would never come. The air was utterly dead. There was not a breath stirring. It was the sleepiest of sleepy days. The drowsing murmur of the 25 studying scholars soothed the soul, like the spell that is the murmur of bees. Away, off in the flaming sunshine, Cardiff Hill, lifted its soft green sides through a shimmering veil of heat, tinted with the purple of distance. A few birds floated on lazy wing, high in the air. No other living thing was visible but for some cows, and they were asleep. Tom's heart ached to be free, or else to have something of interest to do to pass the dreary time. His hand wandered into his pocket, and his face lit up with a glow of gratitude that was prayer, though he did not know it. Then furtively the percussion cap box came out. He released the tick and put him on the long flat desk. The creature probably glowed with gratitude that amounted to a prayer too at this moment, but it was premature, for when he started thankfully to travel off, Tom turned him aside with a pin and made him take a new direction. Tom's bosom friend sat next to him, suffering just as Tom had been, and now he was deeply and gratefully interested in the entertainment in an instant. This bosom friend was Joe Harper. The two boys were sworn friends all the week and embattled enemies on Saturdays. Joe took a pin out of his lapel and began to assist in exercising the prisoner. The sport grew in interest momently. Soon, Tom said that they were interfering with each other and neither getting the fullest benefit of the tick. So he put Joe's slate on the desk and drew a line down the middle from top to bottom. Now, he said, as long as he is on your side, you can stir him up and let him alone. But if you let him get away and get on my side, you're to leave him alone as long as I can keep him from crossing over. All right, go ahead. Start him up. The tick escaped from Tom presently and crossed the equator. Joe harassed him a while and then got away and crossed back again. This change of base occurred often. While one boy was worrying the tick was absorbing interest, the other would look on with interest as strong. The two heads bowed together over the slate, and the two souls, dead to all things else. At last, luck seemed to settle and abide with Joe. The tick tried this, that, and the other course, and got as excited and as anxious as the boys themselves. But time and again, just as he would have victory in his very grasp, so to speak, and Tom's fingers would be twitching to begin, Joe's pin would deftly head him off and keep position. At last, Tom could stand it no longer. The temptation was too strong, so he reached out and lent a hand with his pin. Joe was angry in a moment. So just to they have this little tick, and he keeps on bouncing back and forth between Joe's side and Tom's side, and finally he stays on Joe's side, so Tom tries to scoot him over with this pin, right? So he said, Tom, you let him alone. I only just want to stir him up a little, Joe. No, sir, it ain't fair. You just let him alone. Blame it, I ain't going to stir him much. Let him alone, I tell you. I won't. You shall. He's on my side of the line. Look here, Joe Harper. Who is that tick? Whose is that tick? I don't care whose tick he is. He's on my side of the line, and you shan't touch him. Well, I'll just bet I will, though. He's my tick, and I'll do what I blame please with him or die. A tremendous whack came down on Tom's shoulder, and its duplicate on Joe's. For the space of the 2 minutes, the dust continued to fly from the two jackets and the whole school to enjoy it. The boys had been too absorbed to notice the hush that had stolen upon the school a while before when the master came tiptoeing down the room and stood over them. He had contemplated a good part of the performance before he contributed his bit of variety to it. When the school broke up at noon, Tom flew to Becky Thatcher and whispered in her ear, Put on your bonnet and let on you're going to go home. And when you get to the corner, give the rest of them the slip and turn down through the lane and come back. I'll go the other way and come it over the same way. So one went off with one group of scholars and the other went with the other. In a little while the two met at the bottom of the lane, and when they reached the school they had it all to themselves. Then they sat together with the slate before them, and Tom gave Becky the pencil and held her hand to his, guiding it, and so created another surprising house. So let's stop here for a second. So, words for everyday use. Abide. Okay? So this is one of your spelling and vocabulary words. Did I miss was there another one? I think that was it. Yeah, that was it. Okay? So abide is your first spelling and vocabulary word. So you have to write this word 5 times, okay? And you have to write the dictionary definition, which is right there. Stay. That's it. Only one word. It's not so bad. And again, the way to get credit for literature is as you're reading through this, pick out those words for everyday use, write them 5 times each, and then, again, just write the dictionary definition. You're done. Okay? When the interest in art began to wane, the two fell to talking. Tom was swimming in bliss. He said, "Do you love rats?" "No, I hate them." "Well, I do too, live ones. But I mean dead ones, to swing around your head with a string." "No, I don't care for rats much anyway. What I like is chewing gum." "Oh, I should say so. I wish I had some now." "Do you? I've got some. I'll let you chew it a while, but you must give it back to me." Oof. That was agreeable. That was agreeable. So they chewed it, turnabout, and dangled their legs against the bench in excess of contentment. I guess, I don't know if sharing gum back then was normal or not. Again, I know that like holding hands and sleeping in the same bed if you were at a hotel, those kinds of things were normal. I don't know about sharing chewing gum though. Maybe it was just a them thing. "Was you ever at a circus?" said Tom. "Yes, and my pa's gonna take me again sometime if I'm good. I've been to the circus 3 or 4 times. Lots of times. Church ain't shucks to a circus. There's things going on at a circus all the time. I'm going to be a clown in the circus when I grow up." "Oh, are you? That will be nice. They're so lovely all spotted up." "Yes, that's so. And they get slathers of money. Most $1 a day, Ben Rogers says. Say, Becky, was you ever engaged?" "What's that?" "Why, engaged to be married." "No." "Would you like to?" "I reckon so. I don't know. What's it like?" "Like? Why, it ain't like anything. You only just tell a boy you won't ever have anybody but him, ever, 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 and then you kiss and that's all. Anybody can do it." "Kiss? What do you kiss for?" "Why, that, is, they, always do that." Oh, here's another word, wane, means to lessen. Again, 5 times each, write the dictionary definition. "Everybody?" "Why, yes, everybody that's in love with each other. Do you remember what I wrote on the slate?" "Yes." "What was it?" "I shan't tell you." "Shall I tell you?" "Yes, but some other time." "No, now." "No, not now. Tomorrow." "Oh, no, now. Please, Becky, I'll whisper it. I'll whisper it ever so easy." Becky hesitating, Tom took silence for consent and passed his arm about her waist and whispered the tale ever so softly with his mouth close to her ear, and then he added, "Now you whisper it to me just the same." She rested for a while and then said, "You turn your face away so you can't see, and then I will. But you mustn't ever tell anybody, will you, Tom? Now you won't, will you?" "No, indeed. Indeed I won't now, Becky." He turned his face away. She bent timidly around till her breath stirred his curls and whispered, "I love you." Then she sprang away and ran around and around the desks and benches with Tom after her, and took refuge in a corner at last with her little white apron to her face. Tom clasped her about her neck and pleaded, "Now, Becky, it's all done, all over but a kiss. Don't you be afraid of that. It ain't anything at all. Please, Becky." And he tugged her apron and the hands. Let's see. Where is it? I lost it. And the hands. There we go. By and by she gave up, and she let her hands drop. Her face, all glowing with the struggle, came up and submitted. Tom kissed the red lips and said, "Now it's all done, Becky. And always after this, you know you ain't ever to love anybody but me, and you ain't ever to marry anybody but me. Never, never, and forever. Will you?" "No, I'll never love anybody but you, Tom, and I'll never marry anybody but you, and you ain't ever to marry anybody but me either." "Certainly, of course. That's part of it. And always coming to school, or when we're going home, you're to walk with me. When there ain't anybody looking, and you choose me and I choose you at parties, because that's the way you do when you're engaged." "It's so nice. I never heard of it before." "It's ever so gay. Why, me and Amy Lawrence—" The big eyes told Tom his blunder, and he stopped, confused. "Oh, Tom, then I ain't the first you ever been engaged to?" The child began to cry. Tom said, "Oh, don't cry, Becky. I don't care for her anymore." "Yes, you do, Tom. You know you do." Tom tried to put his arm around her neck, but she pushed him away and turned her face to the wall and went on crying. Tom tried again with soothing words in his mouth and was repulsed again. Then his pride was up, and he strode away and went outside. He stood about, restless and uneasy for a while, glancing at the door, every now and then hoping she would repent and come to find him, but she did not. Then he began to feel badly and fear that he was in the wrong. It was a hard struggle with him to make new advances now, but he nerved himself to it and entered. She was still standing back there in the corner, sobbing with her face to the wall. Tom's heart smote him. He went to her and stood a moment, not knowing exactly how to proceed. Then he hesitatingly, "Becky, I don't care for anybody but you." No replies, but sobs. "Becky," pleadingly, "Becky, won't you say something?" More sobs. Tom got out his chiefest jewel, a brass knob from the top of I don't know what that is. An Andarian ornamental metal support used to hold the wood in a fireplace. Sorry guys, I don't know. An Andarian. And passed it around her so that she could see it and said, "Please, Becky, won't you take it?" She struck it to the floor. Then Tom marched out of the house and over the hills and far away, to return to school no more that day. Presently, Becky began to suspect. She ran to the door. He was not in sight. She flew around to the play yard. He was not there. Then she called, "Tom! Come back, Tom!" She listened intently, but there was no answer. She had no companions but silence and loneliness, so she sat down to cry again and upbraided herself, and by this time the scholars began to gather again, and she had to hide her griefs and still her broken heart and take up the cross of a long, dreary, aching afternoon, with none among the strangers about her to exchange her sorrows with. Again, we have three more words: repent, smite, and upbraid. Again, 5 times each, and the dictionary definition. So, in this chapter, they come together in love, and then they break up out of love. But they both still kind of like each other, and it's weird. Anyway, that's it for literature today. Make sure you write your words 5 times each, and give me the dictionary definition. You don't have to read anything for tonight, because we just read it. And tomorrow, you have to read Chapter 8, Tom Decides on His Course, Old Scenes Reenacted. Hi guys, so day 1, week 5. So today in science we're going to talk about sinking and floating, or the scientific term buoyancy. And so it might not be something that you've thought too much about before, or it might be something that you've wondered but you figured, I don't know, maybe you knew the answer, whatever. Okay, today we're going to start talking about what makes things float and what makes things not float. It's just the first lesson. We are going to read through a couple pages together, and then after we finish reading these pages, we have a few videos for you to watch. So let's go ahead and begin. So in April of 1912, the Titanic departed from England on its first and only voyage. It was as long as 3 football fields and as tall as a 12-story building. It was the largest ship that had been built as of that time, and its furnishings were the finest and most luxurious. The Titanic was also the most technologically advanced ship afloat, and it was considered to be unsinkable. Yet, a few days into the journey, the Titanic struck an iceberg. 2 hours and 40 minutes later, the bow of the great ship slipped under water as the stern rose high into the air. The ship broke into 2. Both pieces sank to the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. More than 1,000 people died. And there it is, what it looks like today. You can see it resting on the seafloor now, okay? How is it possible that a huge ship can float easily in the water under certain conditions, and then in a few hours become a sunken wreck? And why does most of an iceberg lie hidden beneath the surface of the water? To answer these questions, you need to find out what makes an object float and what makes an object sink. I don't know if we talked about specific density last week. I've watched so many different videos and I've talked so much about this that I'm kind of forgetting. But if we did, then you kind of already know. But if we didn't, keep on paying attention. Plus, you have to do some actual math problems with this. So you need to understand the mechanics of how it works. Okay? So let's continue reading. Buoyancy. If you have ever picked up an object underwater, you know that it seems lighter in the water than in air. Water exerts a force called the buoyant force that acts on a submerged object. The buoyant force acts in the upward direction against the force of gravity, so it makes an object feel lighter. As you can see in Figure 13, a fluid exerts pressure on all surfaces of a submerged object. Since the pressure in a fluid increases with depth, the upward pressure on the bottom of the object is greater than the downward pressure on the top. The result is a net force acting upwards on the submerged object. This is the buoyant force. A submerged object displaces or takes the place of a volume of fluid equal to its own volume. You can see this by looking at Figure 14. And Figure 14 is right down here. Okay? The volume of water displaced by an object is equal to the volume of the object. If the object floats, the displacement of water is equal to the volume of the portion of the water of the object that is underwater. So, in other words, okay, so right here, this little container is completely submerged in water, okay, and so it displaces this much. I don't know if you guys can see that super clearly. This container is hollow and is not underwater. Only part of it is underwater, so it displaces much less. So the amount of water that's displaced depends on how much of the object is submerged in the water, okay? Let's see here. An object that floats on the surface of a fluid, however, displaces a smaller volume, as you just saw. It displaces a volume of fluid equal to the portion of the object that is submerged. Archimedes' principle relates the amount of fluid a submerged object displaces to the buoyant force on the object. This relationship is named for its discoverer, the ancient Greek mathematician Archimedes. Archimedes' principle states that the buoyant force on an object is equal to the weight of the fluid displaced by the object. Okay? Let's take a look at Figure 13 right here. Okay? The pressure at the bottom of a submerged object is greater than the pressure at the top. The result is a net force in the upward direction. Okay? And then what is the upward force called? It's called the buoyant force. Okay? All right, so we have two videos that are linked in the today's lesson notes for you to watch. I like these videos. It's by a South Asian nonprofit that makes videos to help kids learn. In South Asia, the emphasis on education is often memorization, and even in America it can be that way sometimes. And the people who make these videos are trying to explain the concepts in a way so you understand it, so that you just kind of innately know it. You don't have to memorize anything. And so let's watch both of these videos. Again, there's two. So watch both videos, and hopefully it can help explain these concepts to you with their animations so that you know it and you don't have to try to memorize different things. You just kind of understand it. Okay? Oh, I guess that's it for science. I should say that too. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so welcome to Group 1, Week 5, Day number 1. So, as promised, today's lesson is a bit of review from last week. So today we are going to review finding the volume of cylinders. Volume of cylinders. Cylinders. Okay. All right, so the volume of cylinders and prisms. The volume of cylinders and prisms is relatively simple, okay? It's simply the base shape, okay? The base shape area times the height, okay? So, whoops, sorry about that. So depending on what your base shape is, like for a prism, if we have like a triangular prism, okay, the triangle is the base shape, okay? If the triangle is the base shape, we need to find the area of the triangle. So if, let's say, the triangle is 3 tall, okay, and 4 wide, we know that the area of the triangle is 1/2 the base times the height equals the area, okay? So it would be 1/2 times 3 times 4, whoops, okay, equals the area. And so that would give us 12, 1/2 times 12, and then 6 equals the area, okay? And so if this area right here, okay, if that equals 6, and let's say that it's 7 long, okay, we would just take 6 times 7, and we would get the total volume, and 6 times 7 is 42, okay? And be 42 units cubed, all right? That's probably a really sloppy and bad explanation, so let's try it one more time with cylinders, okay? So again, we need the area of the base shape, and we multiply it by the height, okay? And so in the case of a cylinder, the base shape is always a circle, okay? So let's say we have a cylinder, maybe it's like a can, okay? I know in my family we've been eating like cans of different things lately, like vegetables and different things, you know, since we're all in lockdown, okay? So we have to find the area of the circle first. And the area of a circle equals pi times the radius squared, okay? And so for this cylinder, let's say that we have a radius of 2, and let's say that we have a length of 10, okay? And so what we have to do is we have to get the area of the circle first, okay? So here's our circle, very bad circle, radius of 2, area equals pi times the radius of 2 squared, okay? Area equals pi times 2 is 4, okay? Then we have to take pi times 4, which is 3.14 times 4. 4 times 4 is 16, gives us a 5 and a 12, okay? So the area equals 12.56. Let's keep it easy and let's say that these are all in inches, okay? So that'd be inches squared. So the area is 12.56 inches squared, and that's for this circle, okay? Now, since we have the area of the base shape is 12.56 inches squared, we have to multiply that by the length of 10, okay? So we have to take 12.56 inches squared times 10 inches, and that gives us 125.6 inches cubed, okay? And that would be our volume, okay? So again, it's the base shape, which could be a circle, a triangle, a rectangle, whatever, okay? The area of the base shape, and then multiplied by the how long or how tall it is, and that gives you the volume of either the cylinder or the prism, okay? Now we're going to watch one video from Khan Academy and do one practice. Hopefully that helps. And again, this is just a review from last week to make sure that you really have the concept down. Okay? All right, that's it for math. Go ahead and work on those 2 homework assignments. Watch the video and do the homework practice. Thank you. All right, let's go ahead and begin. We're with algebra group number 2, and Today we're talking about something called linear programming, okay? And so linear programming is taking everything that we have already learned about graphing systems of equations and systems of inequalities, and now we're actually finding ways to use them for real-life problems more realistically. Yeah, that's a good way to say it. So we are learning realistic ways to use the systems, the graphing of systems of equations and inequalities to solve real problems. Okay, so I'm going to read some stuff through the book with you, and then we are going to do problem number 11 together. Okay, on the iPad. So let's go ahead and get started so you can learn what linear programming is. Many real-life problems involve a process called optimization, okay, which means finding the minimum or maximum value of some quantity. In this lesson, you will study one type of optimization process called linear programming. A linear programming problem consists of a system of linear inequalities called constraints and an objective quantity, such as cost or profit, that can be minimized or maximized. To find the minimum or maximum value of the objective quantity, first find all the vertices of the graph of the constraint inequalities. Then evaluate the objective quantity at each vertex. The smallest value is the minimum and the largest value is the maximum. So let's try to decode this for a second. So if we were talking about business, okay, in business, you want to minimize how much things cost your business, and you want to maximize how much the business is making, what the profits are, or what the revenue is, okay? And so in my experience, using these kinds of things in business, when we would do one of these, we didn't call them linear programming problems, but they were basically this, okay? We would be looking to minimize our costs and maximize our profits or our revenues, depending on what we were looking at in the specific problem. So this can be used by maybe like by an engineer. You can be trying to maximize the heat tolerance of a material, or you can maximize the speed of your rocket, or you can minimize the drag coefficient of your car, or so there's lots of different things that this kind of technique can be used for. All this is doing is it's using algebra to figure out the most something can be or the least something can be. Okay? All right, so solving a linear programming problem. Okay? Find the minimum and minimum value and maximum value of, and it gives us this right here, this objective quantity, okay, subject to the following constraints. Now notice the constraints. The constraints are a system of inequalities, okay? When we graph out this system of inequalities, it gives us this graph right here, this triangular graph, okay? On this triangular graph, we have extremes, and each extreme on this triangular graph is at a vertex, okay? One of our extremes is right here at 0, 4. Okay, this is one of the extreme ends. And then we have another extreme end down here at 0, 0. And then we have a third extreme end down here at 4, 0. So we have those three extremes for our triangle. And so those three extremes are the most likely places where the objective quantity is going to be highest or lowest, because those are the extreme places. Follow? Okay. I don't know if you don't, maybe just rewind the last 30 seconds, okay? So again, we graphed our system, and our system of inequalities are called our constraints. And we have this objective quantity of C that we're trying to find the minimum and the maximum value for, okay? So let me read this. The graph of the constraint inequalities is shown at the left. The three vertices are 0, 0, 4, 0, and 0, 4. To find the minimum and maximum values of C, evaluate the objective quantity right here. Okay, it appears again right here. Okay, C equals 3x plus 2y at each of the three vertices. So again, what we're going to do is we're going to take the objective quantity, the formula for the objective quantity, C equals 3x plus 2y, and we're going to plug in the 0, 4. The 0, 0 and the 4 zeros. So we're going to plug in 3 different things into that objective quantity over there, okay? And each of these 3 things represents one of the extremes, one of the vertices, okay? If we had more vertices, if we had 5 vertices, we would plug in all 5, but we only have 3, so we're plugging in these 3. And when we plug in these 3, the 0, 4, the 0, 0, the 4, 0, we're going to find out which gives us the most and which gives us the least. The most will be our maximum and the least will be our minimum, okay? So, at 0, 0, C equals 0. At 4, 0, C equals 12. And at 0, 4, C equals 8. Therefore, 0, 0 is our minimum value of C. 4, 0 is our maximum value of C, okay? And 0, 4 is neither because it's somewhere in between, okay? The minimum value of C is 0. It occurs when x equals 0 and y equals 0. The maximum value is 12 when x equals 4 and y equals 0. It is important to try evaluating C at other points in the graph of the constraints. The value of C will always be greater than or equal to 0 and less than or equal to 12. For instance, at the point 2, 1, the value of C is 8. Okay? So again, let me break it down. For the constraints, we graph the constraints. They're usually inequalities, and it gives us kind of the shape. Okay? We find each vertice after we graph the system of inequalities, because each vertex or vertice represents the extremes of that set of numbers. And then we plug in the objective quantity in for each of those vertices to discover the minimum and maximum. Okay? That's how we do this process. Again, here we have an objective quantity of C equals 4x plus y. We have all of these 4 constraints here, which make this cute little box, okay? We plug in C equals 4x plus y for each one of the vertexes, the 1, 2, the 4, 2, the 4, 5, and the 1, 5, and we get the following, okay? At 1, 2, C equals 6. That's our minimum. At 1, 5, C equals 9. That's in between. At 4, 5, C equals 21, which is our maximum. And at 4, 2, C equals 18, which again is in between, so it doesn't matter. Okay? So again, we find all the vertexes in the shape, and then we plug in the values to see if they work. Okay? That is how you do all of this. If you don't completely understand how to do this, you can pause the video and look at this. If you're in my math class, we are on chapter 7. What lesson is this? 7.7. You can go through and read it, okay? We're also going to be watching some videos on Khan Academy about this, okay? We have another example right here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 vertices. So we're plugging in all 4 to our objective quantity here, and then we get our minimum and our maximum. I want to try one of these problems with you now. We're going to try doing problem number 11 together, okay? So here's problem number 11. So we have these, we have this objective quantity, okay? C equals 3x plus 2y, and we have all of these constraints. So I don't want to take a tremendous amount of time reviewing how to graph the constraints because you should already know how to do that from previous weeks, okay? So we get the graph over there, and we have vertices at 0, 5, 2, 5, 5, 2, 0, 5, and 0, 0. So now now it's our job to take all of those vertices and test them to see which one is the minimum and the maximum given C equals 3x plus 2y. Okay, so let's work on that together here. I need to figure out how I'm going to split up my screen. Give me 1 second. little messy, but I think you can kind of see everything that's going on here. Okay, so we have this shape. We have this set of objective quantity, okay? And we have to test each and every one of these vertices. So first I'm going to write down my objective quantity. C equals 3x plus 2y, okay? Next, we need to write down every one of our vertices, okay? So I see that we have 0, 5, 2, 5, 5, 2, 0, 5, 2, 5, 5, 2. Let's see here, 5, 0, and 0, 0. 5, 0, and 0, 0. Okay. All right, and our objective quantity for each one of these is 3 times x plus 2 times y gives us a total, okay? 3 times something plus 2 times something equals that. 3 times that plus 2 times that equals that. 3 times that plus 2 times that equals that. 3 times that plus 2 times that equals that. Okay, so starting at the top. Okay, so we have 0 and 5. Okay, so that cancels that out, and then we just get 10. Okay, on this one, we get 6 and 10, which gives us 16. Okay, all right, on this next one, we get 5. 3 times 5 is 15. 2 times 2 is 4, which gives us 19. This one here, 3 times 5, 15. 0 times 2 is 0. That gives us 15. We get 0. That cancels that out. This equals 0. Okay? So our minimum is going to be at the bottom, the 0, 0. Okay? That's our minimum quantity. That's our minimum objective quantity. Okay? This number, the 5, 2, okay, or the 5 on the x and the 2 on the y, is our maximum because it gives us 19. Okay? And so for today, I'm actually not giving you any homework. You just have to sit and kind of process and absorb that process on how to do this. Tomorrow, we're going to do this again. Okay? So we're doing the same thing for 2 days because this is such an important concept, and I need you just to see it today, and tomorrow we're going to be reviewing it again, and you're going to have homework over this. Okay? All right, that's it for math class. I hope you learned something new. Thank you.